It's time for the Maximum PC No BS podcast, episode number 209 for the week of August 12th, 2013. On today's Pure PC Power podcast, our main focus will be the 2013 Dream Machine. We'll talk all about it, what we thought about before we built it, what it was like to actually put it together, and our closing thoughts on it. We will wrap it up with some reader questions. We'll give you our editor's picks. And just because we'd like to leave you on a positive note, we'll finish with one of Gordon's signature rants. Thanks for joining us. Let's get busy with the Maximum PC No BS podcast. All right. What's up, everyone? Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for those who are watching on the camera over there. I'm your podcast host, Josh. Joining me today is former intern Chris Zella.
Hello.
Pretty good, the way I pronounce that. Associate editor Tom McNamara.
That's me.
And Deputy Editor Gordon Ung.
Hello.
Catherine Stevenson's out. She was just on vacation and sort of catching up. Jimmy Thang is also super busy. He's not here, so just the four of us. Now, this is going to be Chris Zella's last podcast as a Maximum PC intern. What are you doing, Chris? Why are you leaving us?
Well,
The thrill is gone.
I'm going.
Chris has been an intern for how long?
Just shy of a year. I came here September 15th, so yeah, the internship's pretty much ended, and I'm going to be a contributing editor at PC Gamer magazine. So yeah, I'm going to be writing content for them.
Can you talk about what you're working on right now, or is it?
Well, right now, I mean, the stuff that I've done for them is just a GeForce Experience story. So I tested out GeForce Experience on a like mid-range to low-end laptop. I did it on a high-end PC, and then I did it on kind of like a budget rig.
Cool.
And just tested it out, see how it like ran different games and stuff. I also did a Battlefield 3 build for them, like a budget Battlefield 3.
Cool.
So, because I mean, PC Gamer, the difference is, they're more price focused.
Sure.
Than Max PC is. So, I mean, that's kind of the stuff that I've done so far for them.
We care about quality over here.
Actually, before we had a Julian Reich on this podcast, he's our summer intern. He left also to go back to Canada. So for those of you who can do the math, that means we have no interns right now, which means we're looking for an intern. So if you're the type of person who lives nearby or can live near us and you can get college credit for it, and you've got hardware experience.
And you're not scary.
You're not scary like Tom.
It's just the haircut.
Email us. We are looking for an intern. All right, let's get right into the topic of the day. This is our Dream Machine episode, so we're just going to get into it. Dream Machine, for those of you who don't know, every year we build one in September. I'm thinking December.
Months, yeah.
We build it for the September issue.
Every year we build it for the September issue. How many have there been so far? Like 15?
I think the first one was 96. That's if you count boot.
Yeah, the first couple of Dream Machines were just simply listed spec charts. They weren't actually constructed. And
The first one?
Yeah.
I forget.
Yeah, the first one just said this is what it would look. This is what a Dream Machine would be. It wasn't. So I don't know when the decision was made until start building it.
Yeah, I thought that actually the first one may have actually been built, and then there were also some other article about it.
Well, there's some party trivia for you.
So anyways, we just got done, so the Dream Machine's an annual thing and requires a lot of planning and preparation, a lot of staff debating on which parts will go in, which parts won't, blah, blah, blah. We had vendors here sort of, doing beauty pageants with us for a while. So anyways, the Dream Machine's been constructed. The issue's in everyone's hands. We don't want to spoil it for anyone. So obviously, if you haven't received our September Dream Machine issue,
Just stop listening.
Stop listening. Otherwise, everyone else, let's talk about it. Go ahead, Gordon. Why don't you kick it off?
All right, so the part that everybody cares about, we'll get that out of the way. So inside, I'm going to go off the spec list, right? Let's go down the spec list. Got the magazine to make sure I don't screw this up. All right, for CPU, Core i7 3970X, hexa-core CPU, overclocked to 5 gigahertz. Motherboard, Asus Rampage 4 Extreme, 64 gigs of Corsair Dominator RAM, 4 EVGA water-cooled Titans, hydro copper. 2 Samsung 840 Pros, 512 gigs apiece, correct, Josh?
Yep.
I think those are in RAID as well.
RAID 0. And then we also have 2 1 terabyte, well, just under 1 terabyte, Crucial M500s, just JBOD, and then 3 4 terabyte Caviar Black. Actually, Western Digital has corrected me. They're actually just black drives now.
Were the M500s in
blacks.
RAID 0, or were they just...
No.
They used
I
to
don't
be
remember the detail.
Western Digital Caviar Black. Now it's just WD Black. They keep shortening everything.
Right. Let me finish the list. Pioneer BDR Blu-ray burner reader, because everybody bitched last year when we didn't put the optical drive in. Custom liquid cooling, which Tom can talk about later. 1600 watt LEPA power supply. Corsair 900D painted by Smooth Creations, which we'll talk about the paint job. Windows 8, for all you haters. Asus 4K panel PQ321. Steel Series Sensei mouse, and an IBM Model M keyboard. Why an ancient keyboard? You want to talk about the secret of the Dream Machine this year?
So let's just talk about how. I guess we can talk about how it sort of all came together, and what we were looking at, what we were thinking. So and just to give everyone a perspective, last year. So let's start out this way. So we actually have a couple constraints on us on how we build the system. So number one, obviously, is it has to be something that's available, and it can't be some sort of a crazy one-off, not available type thing. We'd prefer. I mean, the ultimate Dream Machine would be some sort of next generation technology, like it'd have, like next-gen Intel chipset with a next-gen NVIDIA GPU, but those things, that never happens because, A, manufacturers making that stuff, they don't really want their beta products to get into the magazines, or even in this case, alpha or pre-alpha. It's just not possible to have a working thing like that appear. Number two is that we want to get things that are on the bleeding edge of almost available or available but not quite fully available. That's perfect.
And preferably really expensive.
Yeah, but also but the flip side of that is with working drivers and stable, which is difficult, very difficult. And then we're also working on a deadline on so we finished the system probably 2 months ago.
Right. Yeah. So this has been done. It's just sitting around collecting dust at this point.
Right. Like everyone now has seen this Asus monitor. It's been on Hot Hardware and some other sites, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, we were messing with this thing in June."
Yeah, a long time ago.
So we
in fact, we were actually, I will hand it to Asus. We actually were beta testers for this for some of the early firmware. So things were worked out, and there were beta drivers, beta firmware, because we had it a long time ago.
Yeah, the monitor is not still hanging around. They asked for that back, so.
Yeah, that went back. But
yeah,
of course, do we want to get into any specifics of the hardware, any controversies?
Well,
the
let's
processor, the
let me
Sandy
just,
Bridge E,
yeah,
no Ivy Bridge E.
people had questions about
Well, let me just go over this real quick then. So we have some constraints. So one of the constraints is that we want it to be next generation or cutting edge, but not so much that it's either that's not stable or not available. Number two is we don't like to repeat what we did years before. So even though like last year we had, for example, we had a RAM disk with on 32 gigs of our RAM. That's really awesome. That's super cool. This year, since we did that already, we didn't do it. Not because it's bad or sucks, just because we did it already.
Right. And previous years we've done dual Xeon. We did a dual 6-core processor with the dual Westmirs actually.
Right.
So we didn't do the next year again do dual Westmirs.
Plus, we also have deadline pressure. If we were a website, we could just sort of, and we got some parts in that didn't quite work, we could just sort of continually work on it until we got it working and then do our story. Here, we have it's kind of like skydiving. We kind of have one shot to get it right. And maybe if that doesn't work, maybe we have a backup plan that we can pull out quickly.
Yeah. So we can't get too experimental.
But we can't, yes, we can't, so we have to sort of be dangerous but not too dangerous.
Right, but I mean, actually, so again, Dream Machine when it was constructed 2 months ago, was the very cutting edge of technology.
Yeah,
right?
the CPU is relatively old compared to like Haswell, but it's overall it gives us more options, particularly with the number of video cards you can put in there.
Right.
And it gives us 12 threads instead of 8.
So let's start. Let's just start on the outside and go inwards. So the case we chose this year is a 900D. Now, this actually took us a while to come to the decision. When this case first came out, we all thought, okay, this is pretty obvious contender.
Yeah.
But
because it was based off the 800D or a successor to it, and the 800D is an awesome case.
Right. It's a big case.
Seemed like
you
a
know.
natural fit.
It's got those
Eventually
really
it did.
nice angles on it. There were actually other contenders. Some of the other contenders they haven't released, in fact, their case yet, but we're hoping to do a story on that. So there's some other cool stuff coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we if you guys read our case review of the 900D, we gave it an 8.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like, yeah, pretty good. You know, we weren't over the moon on it.
8 is still a good score. You know.
8's not a bad score, but I'm sure people expected it to be 9 kick-ass or something like that. When we were, and actually, ironically, when later on, when we were all, you know, elbows deep in the 900D, building the Dream Machine in it, a lot of the complaints we brought up in the review were brought to the fore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually the amazing thing is it wasn't big enough.
Yeah. We still ran out of room.
Yeah, for everyone who says, "Oh my God, $350 for that case and it's so big," and and you know that's their main marketing thing. The main marketing thing from Corsair is how big the case is. The side of the box says, "What will you do with all this room?"
Yeah.
And we found ourselves cursing all known deities because we had no space in the bottom of that chassis.
Even made up a few names.
Yeah. So we decided to go, but in the end, you know, we chose a 900D. And correct me if I'm wrong, or you know, feel free to jump in, guys, because it's really big, it's new, it doesn't look too, it errs on the side of caution in terms of its aesthetic. It's not out there. It's completely plays everything completely by the book.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the other things is it also very much fit the theme that we were picking, which we haven't really talked about yet.
Well, we'll talk about that next. And I don't think we had chosen that theme yet, had we?
No. I mean, honestly, I think the theme did go into the choice of the 900D because it does have the classic looks.
Yeah, but when you think about it too, like cases, like full actual like massive towers, there aren't very many. Like we used the TJ11 last year,
right,
before I got here as an intern, and then
used the Cosmos 2 already.
Yeah, and the Cosmos 2. So it's like you're running out of, you know, cases.
Yeah, we didn't have that many. We didn't have that many super cases to really work with. We had TJ11 was last year, and hasn't changed as far as I know. So, but so at some point that decision was made. So I don't know if you guys follow Corsair online. They released a beige version of their 900D on April 1st as a joke.
Yeah, not for sale, but like sort of.
It was just a Photoshop.
On sale. Yeah.
Right. We all actually thought it looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it was Gordon where they actually had the idea.
No, I don't think so.
Well, it wasn't me. Somehow the collective brain of Maximum PC decided that
no one wants to owe up to it.
Well,
it wasn't. I think we all stand behind it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done it.
Last year's build was very futuristic, and I think your idea was to go in the other direction, to do something retro.
Gordon's denying.
Yeah,
Gordon's
like,
denying
I
all
did not
knowledge.
pick the thing.
I don't remember.
I guarantee you it was Gordon's idea.
Yeah.
But we were all on.
Remember.
I do not recall, Senator.
I was on, but we were all on board with it. No one's trying to put Gordon on the bus because it looks really cool. So we decided at some point that the beige tower was kind of the way to go. It'd be kind of fun to do a sort of retro build, you know, big tower, beige looking. And that was sort of the direction we decided to do it in. And it would be different. It's not something you see all the time, you know.
So we had the case custom painted and the mouse custom painted as well, and we had a Corsair 350D based system custom painted in the same color by the same person.
Smooth Creations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tom's getting a little bit ahead of us.
Sorry.
It's okay. So we got so once we decided the 900D was in, we decided to send it to Smooth Creations to paint it. And then normally they they painted all our Dream Machines, or he has painted all our Dream Machines. And Gordon, what did he say when you sent him the design?
He was like,
Gordon is texting his wife.
Well, the guy said it was like no big deal. I could do this in like a day or something.
He said, "Are you joking?" He was like, yeah, because for people who don't know, if you're not familiar with Smooth Creations, they're probably the best. Actually, I will say they are the best case painters in the business. The paint jobs they do on systems, they also do Xboxes and laptops, if you want to have them do it, are spectacular.
Yeah, they're really like automotive grade paint jobs.
I mean, they're just beautiful. To actually, run your hand on it, it's an incredible paint job. So to ask him to paint a case beige is like he was like, "What, are you out of your mind?" It's like you could just spray paint that with a can.
Yeah. And you can't really tell from the magazine, how thick the paint is, how smooth it looks. I mean, it's brilliant. Anyway, so we decided to go with the beige, and then we just sent the case off. We basically sent the case off for him to start doing the paint job. And then I think we were waiting around. Then we started collecting all the parts here while the case was being painted. We didn't have another. I think we thought about building into like a dummy case just to get everything working, but we didn't. That never transpired. So we were sitting here just waiting around for him to get the case to us,
Yeah, because
and then we started collecting all the parts. So let's just go down. Start talking about the parts then. We'll just sort of talk about it the way it all came together. All right. So then CPU, motherboard, and RAM.
Right. So there again, we had our choice. We could have possibly gone with Haswell, although I don't think we even had Haswell in hand at that point. But we weren't going to be able to run 4 Titans, so that kind of dictated that we go for X79, so LGA 2011, and as we know, your only choice there is Sandy Bridge E. But again, Sandy Bridge E with its 6 cores and a lot of the multi-threaded apps is still the fastest CPU in town, especially clocked up to 5 gigahertz. There's nothing that can really touch a Sandy Bridge E at 5 gigahertz.
Yeah, we had decided early on during the GPU selection we had decided the only solution was Quad Titan, water cooled. There's no other way we could run the Dream Machine. If we ran 3 cards, people would have been upset. If we ran 4 air-cooled cards, people would have been upset. We had to go to the absolute extreme possible.
Apparently, we had a couple people asking why we didn't use AMD 7990s in there. And the thing is, 4 Titans are just a lot faster. A single Titan's a lot faster than a single 7970. So I don't.
Yeah, I also asked, I even asked AMD too if they had any sort of next-gen cards, and they didn't respond. And I don't expect them to respond. They are never going to be like, oh, we actually do. Let me give you some secret information that I'm sure. That never happens, and NVIDIA is exactly the same way. They're never going to be like, oh, we actually do have a Titan Ultra, and no one knows about it.
Yeah, they have to be careful.
I mean, they could theoretically, let us have one.
And it has happened in the past.
But it's not very common.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare. You have to, the stars have to line up perfectly for you to get the hardware, for you to get the drivers, for everything to work, for you to be able to surprise people. And actually, we did do that with the Radeon 9700 Pro way, way back, right?
Yeah, the NVIDIA actually had They actually said something like, "Oh, a Titan Ultra," and we said, "Yeah," and they said, "What time frame?" And I said, "Like this time frame," and they were like, "No." So I'm not sure if that meant no on the time frame or no on the card or no. I mean, I really don't know what they meant. And they were very unspecific. AMD, same thing, kind of like, yeah, maybe, like they always say that the Dream Machine's 1 month, 1 or 2 months ahead,
right?
Just a little bit too early, but
we can't move it because that's tradition. And September 1996, the first Dream Machine was born or written about. God knows if it actually existed. I believe it did. I wasn't here, but so we stick to that schedule. Every September, we build the most badass computer we can. Sometimes you have to build a Dream Machine with the parts you have, not the parts you wish you had.
Yeah, we would. There's people online saying, oh, they had definitely had Ivy Bridge E, and 9970 Radeon triple cross. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be a major coup for us to have all that stuff way before anyone else in the entire world. That would be awesome. But
I don't know if anybody has an Ivy Bridge E that they didn't steal from the Intel factory itself.
All right, so we chose the 4 video cards. That dictated our motherboard, which dictated every kind of, not everything else, but that package core came together as Sandy Bridge E at 12 cores, 5 gigahertz, 4 Titans and 1 water. That's pretty badass. Yeah, it's not out of this universe, but it's right at the top.
Although we didn't get into this, but I will say one thing we could have used more of was more power.
Yes.
Right, because our power supply, it's just, there's probably I don't think there's any other PSUs that are more powerful. This is probably one of the 1 or 2 top-rated, retail consumer power supplies you can get, and it's the LEPA 1600.
Yeah, as in 1600 watts.
1600 watts, and actually at the wall we were drawing 1600 watts. I think it's 1700 peak on this, and we were pushing 1650.
And your average wall socket can really only provide up to I think 1800.
Right, we had problems where originally it was plugged into a power strip, which is plugged into the wall, and it actually blew the power strip, crashing all the computers on it as well as the Dream Machine.
Go ahead, Chris. I feel like Chris has not been part of this conversation.
Well, I was saying, can we have done dual power supplies then? Because the problem is that if the power supply limits us to how much we could overclock and the stability of the system, we could have done dual, right?
You guys are getting away. You guys are getting to the end of the story here.
Well, we're trying to move it along here.
Let's just go back real quick. All right, so we're building our parts while the Dream Machine case is being painted, right? So we end up going for the since we had 4 Titans taking up basically the entire lower half of the motherboard, there was not any chance of us including a PCI Express SSD. Yeah. So we would have loved to explore that in terms of getting something faster than SATA, but that was not possible. Plus, the motherboard only had 6 ports,
Yeah.
and then
it's
2
X79.
X79. So we were limited by that as well. We couldn't add any additional ports. We would have loved to have, you name it, 12 1 terabyte SSDs or something that was kind of ridiculous like that. But we were limited by the number of SATA ports we had, and we couldn't add more because the video cards blocked all those ports off.
Yeah.
So we went with the obvious. We had the Samsung 840 Pros. Those are the number 1 SSD right now, uncontested. And then we had extra room, so we went with the Crucial M500 at 1 terabyte. And then we also wanted to put some traditional storage in there, so we put 3 Caviar Black 4 terabyte hard drives. That could have easily been a Hitachi 7K 4000, but splitting hairs. Why? Yeah. So I saw we clouded an optical drive last year. We got a lot of crap because we're not including the optical drive.
Right.
So this year, Gordon buckled.
No, honestly, I will say I have not built a desktop computer without an optical drive, personally.
Well, I mean, it just depends on how often do you actually use an optical drive? I mean, like
10 times a week, maybe? Is that enough?
10 times a week? What? 10 times a week?
What are you
Really?
What are you using it for?
I was the other day I was trying to copy an old home movie on DVD that the disc was corrupt. Just last night, in
Off
fact.
topic. So we chose the Pioneer Blu-ray drive. Everyone who didn't like or not including. I mean, literally, we probably got how many letters did we get last year about not including the optical drive? Probably 50 to 100 letters.
Yeah, definitely. Again,
Well, same thing with sound card, right?
It's cool, but I think the sound card. Yeah, people don't like that we're not putting a sound card in, but
Sound card, yeah.
there's no space.
There's
So
no
we
space.
didn't include a sound card. There was obviously, again, 4 Titans. There's no space. We also didn't include speakers, and we didn't include speakers or headset. And we talked about that too.
Did we?
Did we?
Yeah.
I mean, whether we should do it or not, it's such a personal choice.
The thing is, we never review speakers, number 1. Number 2 is we review headsets, but someone might think this certain headset is shit, and I might think it's awesome. Like, it's kind of a personal thing. And, yeah, you could even say in the past, well, I don't know, the main point is we really couldn't come to a consensus. We just couldn't do it. So we decided no one really cares anyways, and the core components are more important, so we skipped that. What about this Asus PK321? This is a 4K monitor from Asus. This thing had actually broken cover maybe a couple weeks before we began collecting parts. So when we saw it, we were like, oh wow, perfect. This thing has a resolution of 3840 by 2160. It's 32 inches.
It's awesome.
Yeah, really, really nice.
And really, really small buttons on your desktop icons.
We weren't even sure though if we could actually get the Titans to run at 4K.
Yeah, there were some, beta. There are some beta firmware and driver issues, which we kind of talked about earlier. I will say we were running 4-way SLI at full 4K resolution, and it did work. It's still at this point they're still working on firmware because obviously not too many people actually own these things, but
Probably
they are
like
still
1 or
working
2
on it.
guys on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you go look at the specs for the card, they'll just say that the maximum resolution is 2560 by 1600.
And you're going purely DisplayPort at that resolution if
Right,
you want to get
so
60 hertz.
We went DisplayPort. We did not use the dual HDMI thing, which doesn't quite work right, I guess.
All right, so yeah, the Asus monitor, it's really, really nice. And we were actually, I was watching someone benchmark on playing Tomb Raider at 4K, and and it is incredible. I mean, looking at watching someone game at high resolution on that panel, it literally looks like you're looking at the next generation of something. It's just amazing.
The interesting, I got an email from a reader. He's like, hey, of course, we're always surprised when people actually have this hardware that people dreams about. But this reader has like 3 30-inch panels. He plays on 330s, right? 2560 by 1600 times 3. He's like, that, it seems like a 4K panel is pretty wussy. Why would you do a 4K panel instead of 330s?
Well,
3 25 60 30.
People thought we were going to do that this year, do 3 30-inch panels.
Well, we've done.
You basically spin them vertically and then put them next to each other. It makes like a wall of makes a huge wall right in front of you.
Right. So my response is we actually did that like 3 years ago, so it's not really new to us. And also, I think the time is right for everyone to push for 4K. Yeah, you could do. I mean, honestly, ideally, if we wanted to be awesome, it would be 3 4K panels, right? So you little wussy, 30-inch panels. But it would actually be nice to do 3 4Ks. But honestly, just getting 1 4K to work, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, but also how 3 4Ks can even 3 Titans run that?
I don't think that's why I'm saying I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, because that's intense.
Well,
what are you running at?
330s and 1.4K.
You're running at like
intense there, pretty much.
11,000 by like 3,000 or 6,000. It's like some crazy ass resolution.
It's a pretty high resolution, yeah.
It would have been. It would
If
have
it's
been.
too much for you, Chris, you can leave the room.
I'm just saying, it's like to fathom like 11,000 by 6,000. It's like that's a shitload of pixels.
It's awesome though because the pixel density is so. I mean, it's really really dense.
And,
Yeah.
32-inch panel with that many pixels. It's crazy.
It's pretty nice.
with
I
the-
mean, to say it's nice is an understatement. It's pretty fucking awesome.
It really sucks you in with the density and the proximity.
All right, so we have our case. We have on most of our parts. We decided Windows 8 Professional. Not really much discussion about that. SteelSeries mouse. I don't really know about that. I mean, that's kind of a personal choice too.
Oh, but you know what the thing about that mouse though is awesome. Again, we sent that mouse up to Smooth Creations, and he painted it. It looks like an OEM mouse with just a beautiful, luscious beige, creamy paint job on it.
Yeah, the mouse looks really good.
Yeah.
It kind of glistens when you. I mean, it looks really really nice.
But the nice thing, it has the classic looks too. That Sensei, because I mean, obviously
Yeah.
mice are very personal to everybody, but this mouse looks like it's from a vintage retro machine almost.
IBM Model M keyboard. So that was sort of the cherry on top of our Dream Machine Sunday.
Right.
Now, most readers, I posted a picture of this on Facebook a couple days ago, and I think we got 120 something comments because everyone was like, "Yo, my God, that is the best keyboard ever made."
Yeah, isn't it?
Some people thought we are just kind of taking the piss, or whatever you want to call it,
Britishism.
joking with people, being some sort of joke, whatever. But
What
we
does
are.
that mean?
It means like intentionally
pulling
being
your chain,
stupid, yeah,
pulling your
kind of
chain.
like trolling or whatever.
Yeah.
But IBM Model M is really nice keyboard. As most people remember it from way back in the day, it was the first kind of clicky keyboard.
Are you going to start slipping in more Britishisms? Because I needed my dictionary to understand it.
The keyboard that we use is older than some of our readers, but it still works fine.
Yeah, it's older than me. That's what Gordon was saying
It's
when we
almost.
first got it.
I think it was 92.
I mean, everyone today loves these mechanicals, but they're trying to emulate the sound of that keyboard.
Yeah.
And you can get them. We bought ours on eBay. It was like $50. It was $40 to ship the thing. Thank you, eBay sellers. But
yeah.
It has a
Because we needed
PS2.
it.
It has a PS2 port. Our motherboard has a PS2 port also.
right.
Every key is spring loaded. The thing is metal. It weighs probably 6 or 7 pounds. It's fucking heavy.
And it also uses buckling spring instead of the Cherry MX keys. And nobody else can use the buckling spring because I think the patent is owned by a company called Unicomp.
Yeah, they actually still manufacture a modern day version of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, the beige looked kind. I mean, it all fit together pretty well.
Right.
So we got the keyboard in. What about the cooling? Why don't you talk about? So Tom was sort of in charge. Tom's our cooling guy. Tom is the one who sort of put everything together for the cooling for the Dream Machine. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I should say that I'm not exactly an expert in the area. Some of it was a learning experience. You probably noticed, first of all, that we went with hydrocopper GPUs instead of just building it on our own. But the problem was that we were kind of leery about modifying 4 $1,000 video cards and doing it successfully 4 times in a row, because if we didn't, and given the time constraints, we just didn't want to mess it up.
Just to clarify, what he's saying is that instead of buying, getting just stock Titans and then taking the coolers off and then putting our own custom water blocks onto them, we are using EVGA's pre-water blocked Titans,
Yeah.
the hydrocopper.
And we knew that the hydrocopper technology worked. We've seen it work in the past. We knew the EVGAs, they have excellent build quality and good like customer service and all that if we needed it. So we decided to take that route. But everything else about the water cooling was custom. We didn't get a kit for any of that. It was all ordered individual parts, and we all just put it together from that.
It's not really any way. There's not really any way to. There is no such thing as either you go out of the box bolt on or you go DIY.
Yeah, when you're putting 4 video cards in a system, you're leaving kits behind.
Plus, since we're overclocking our Sandy Bridge, we knew we had to get the water on the CPU. We're gonna have to overclock. You get some pretty good temperatures out of that. So
Yeah, so that's why we went with a 480 millimeter radiator in the top. I think it was 480. It was 4 times 120.
now, what was your rule about that, Tom? You had that rule.
Did I?
Yeah, like number of fans for every core or something
Oh,
like that.
well, the rule of thumb is that you want to have 120 millimeters of radiator for every core that you're trying to keep cool. And as a core, I mean like the entire CPU would be one core, and then each GPU core would be one core. So we had 4 GPU cores, and then 1 CPU core. So that's 5 altogether. So we needed a minimum of 120 times 5 radiator surface. So we did a 480 in the top, and then was it a 360 or 240 in the bottom? I can't remember now. It's been like 2 months since we built this.
I think we also ran into a lot of not a lot, but several problems during our build where we anticipated certain needs and then it turned out to be not what we wanted. And I think we started out with a 240 and then eventually went to a 360.
Well, we originally ordered a 360. Then we were having trouble getting it to fit inside the case, and we figured that out, and we went back to the 360.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of overkill, but
and we went with push-pull in both radiators with the Gentle Typhoon fans, 1850s. We probably could have gone with 1450s in retrospect.
So I think we eventually had in the final build we had something like I think we had 18 case fans.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. But if you're doing push-pull and huge radiators, that's kind of what you need.
Yeah, the top radiator. So there's a radiator on the very top of the chassis that's 480 millimeters. So that had 420 millimeter fans pushing and pulling, pushing air into it and pulling air out of it. So that's 8 fans right there. The bottom of the chassis had another 360 millimeter radiator with fans also push-pull. So that's 12 more fans. That's a total of, that's 8 plus no. Yeah, that's 8 plus 12. No. 8 plus 6, that's 14.
Yeah.
Then you had a normal outtake fan.
Yeah, and then we replaced all the stock fans in the case. There's 4 stock fans. We replaced the front 3 with more Sith Gentle Typhoons. And then in the rear, we did not put the Sith because they actually don't make or have, or I couldn't find any available in the 140 millimeter size, which is what we wanted back there, because I already had a 140. So we put an Arctic cooling fan back there. They're pretty nice.
So it's a lot of gear. Connecting the SLI those hydro water block or hydro copper GPUs was really you have to put one in and then attach the second one with the connectors in place and sort of connect the 2 cards and then chain them all together.
And then put all 4 in at once.
Yeah, and then you have to put all 4 in at once because they all connect to one another, and then you have to get once those are all in, then we put our CPU in. We put our hard drives in. I mean, and then eventually, once we had all the parts in, this is before we even put the pump or any of the tubing in or any of that stuff. We realized we were already out of room.
Yeah.
There was no more room in the case for anything left. There was nothing left.
I think we basically taped the reservoir into the case.
All right, so that was this is all. We're actually now. I'm the one getting ahead of ourselves. So we actually have all our parts figured out here. We figured this is the way we're going to go. What do you want to talk about? The last thing we have is the power supply, the LEPA 1600. So that was the only thing we could really do. That's. I mean, is there a power supply that goes even higher than that?
I understand Thermaltake has a 2,000 watt power supply, but I think they sell it to the military. They don't sell it retail because obviously a lot of people's homes doesn't work with it.
It would just blow a circuit like right when you turned it on.
Yeah.
But I mean, Chris asked earlier, could we have used 2 power supplies? Well, we were kind of space constrained, and also.
I guess the radiator, right? The radiator in the bottom took up the second power supply.
We could have made it work. The issue really is where are you going to plug your second power supply into? I mean, you're already pushing 1,700 watts. If you're going to push it,
like separate circuit.
We didn't.
You're gonna plug it in outside your house to a second. Where do you get the second circuit? I mean,
I don't think we did any sort of calculations ahead of time as in terms of how much power we would need. We just wanted to get the most we could possibly get. Because we figured this is the most. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we just figured we need the most we can possibly get. And I know that we had offers from some other vendors were for 1,300 and 1,500, and we just said we need the most.
Right.
We need the most.
Right, and it's interesting. We just looked at there's a machine reviewed last month that actually had 4 Titans, so quad Titan box, and I thought they would actually also draw a similar amount of power, but they were actually, I think it was like 1,200 watts. It was actually pretty conservative.
I think in retrospect, if somebody wanted to replicate the Dream Machine, that should probably go with 1450 RPM fans, or even slower, because the faster it gets, the more
Wow.
power it needs.
Also, not as many fans.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah,
lot of
there's
fans.
a shitload of fans.
Yeah.
Like
Also, a
18
lot of
fans.
drives.
And and if you're going to use a second power supply, you'd need a dedicated circuit for that one. And you already need a dedicated circuit for the Dream Machine itself.
Right. So,
So
we
you'd
like
have
what-
to be plugging your computer into 2 different power circuits.
You
which is-
should,
Yeah.
you should
Which is
if you're
pretty much
going to plug in your own Dream Machine, like the one based on that spec sheet, you should know what your electrical system looks like.
Or
and
I guess you
how
could
it
run
behaves.
220, right?
Yeah,
Um,
you can't just plug it into any old
220.
socket.
221.
Yeah.
220, yeah, whatever.
So we have all our parts chosen, and also the Lipa had gotten, Johnny Guru gave a good review. I mean, we don't really. I know Gordon's not a fan of modular power supplies. That's what this one is. It's a brand we don't use it very often, but it was really well reviewed.
It's basically an Enermax, isn't it?
Intermax.
Yeah, it's built by Intermax.
So then with that, then the case came. We had all our parts sort of sitting here. We were all kind of waiting to start building. We didn't have a case. We waited around for a couple days and kept getting. Anyways, the case finally arrived. We have a video of it being unwrapped for the first time, and it was like pretty impressive. I didn't know what it would look like. I thought it might look kind of flat.
Yeah.
But instead, it looks really glossy and shiny, really glossy.
And the gloss, unfortunately, doesn't really show up in the photographs. So.
It's pretty nice. And then the window has smoked glass on it too. Gives it kind of a dark look. That's pretty cool. When we first saw it, we were 100% satisfied. It was perfect.
Oh, yeah. And that,
Yeah.
It
it's
was
it's
exactly
a
what we wanted.
It was
I think it's
also-
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in addition to the beige on the outside, it was also painted. Smooth Creations also painted silver on the inside,
Right.
What was the normal color of the interior of the case? Do you guys
Black.
know?
black. But we wanted to
Black.
emulate the original bare metal interior of the older cases.
That actually caused us a little bit of a hassle later on, if I recall. But
Yeah.
yeah, the interior is actually custom painted silver too. I forgot about that. Good point.
It's pretty amazing because you don't even know it's painted silver.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
looks really good. So then Gordon started building it. We started putting in the motherboard. We basically waited for him to put all the parts in, put the drives in. We actually got these what's funny is we didn't have enough room for all our SSDs and hard drives, so we got these little teeny adapters at our local store that let you put 2 SSDs on top of one another into a single 2.5-inch adapter inside of a 3.5-inch adapter.
And then we also needed power distribution blocks to cover all the fans because the motherboard couldn't plug into all of them.
Power distribution blocks for all the fans. So that was basically would be a Velcroed on thing you attach to the side of the case that has one 4-pin Molex going into the bottom of it, and then that provides power to like 7 fans.
And you can also plug it into SATA or to other connectors, but we used Molex because it wouldn't be occupied with anything else in the system.
So yeah, so our SSDs are in, motherboard's in, RAM's in, all the radiators Tom put all the radiators in.
I actually had to feed the 480 through the front of the case because there was no other orientation where it would actually go in. So I had to take the 2 top 5.25 bay covers off of the case and then slide the radiator in through the front.
And I think originally too, the way we had the bottom set up, so the 480s at the top, 360s on the bottom, and originally we had the power supply in the front, and then we had the radiator behind it. And then we made a decision to swap those two because it would just be easier to get the fresh air coming from the outside versus having to gum through all those cables.
And you can
if you've seen a 1600 watt modular power supply for a system like this, when all the cables coming out of it, it's pretty bad.
it was pretty messy.
So that's one of the reasons. One of the nice things about that bottom compartment, the 900D, is you can put all your cables down there and then route them through those holes.
And,
Right.
and
But
we're able
still, it's a shitload of cables coming out of it.
and we're able to fit a large radiator in the bottom because the power supply in the 900D is actually rotating on its side,
Right.
so that you can fit like 2 alongside each other if you wanted to.
So going back to our previous problem, if we found out we ran out of power, and then we could not have installed a second power supply without shortening that radiator somehow. I think. I mean, so we'd have to basically we would have had to change the radiator, and then even if we would have changed the radiator to like a 240, there would have been a million cables going right in front of it. You have to kind of be able to look at it from the top down. It's just there's not enough room down there.
Yeah.
So even on, it sounds crazy, but even on a case that big, we had no room in that bottom compartment, none.
Because we were doing push-pull in the fans, and we had a bunch of connectors plugged into the power supply.
Yeah. So you basically look at if you open that lower compartment, you see this 360 millimeter radiator there with fans on the front of it and the back of it. That goes into the bottom compartment about 3 or 4 inches. So that's a lot of room. Then on the other side of that fan, then you have your 1600 watt power supply with all its cables coming out of it. So you can imagine that does not leave you a whole lot of room down there.
No.
So we basically had, once we had everything sort of set up again, then we proceeded to do the water tests.
Yeah, that's always fun.
And we just used distilled water, nothing fancy.
So what we wanted to do was make sure we had everything, all the blocks were tight. The blocks come kind of unassembled, and we had to sort of assemble them.
Right.
Or Tom had to assemble the water block for the CPU. It's basically a base thing, an O-ring, and then a cap.
Yeah, and then there was a shim inside the block that was pre-installed. We actually had to take that out because it was its thickness was designed for a different CPU, basically.
Right.
That was kind of a pain.
So then we basically had to design the circuit, put our pump in, get our reservoir out, get everything ready, and then sort of attach everything without actually having system power, and just run water through the system to see if it was leaking anywhere.
Yeah. It actually didn't leak that much, not as much as I was afraid it was going to.
Yeah, so from what I recall, it didn't leak at all. I mean, it was kind of weird because you could see the water sort of churning in the reservoir, but that was it. I mean, there was nothing else. If you ever seen one of these large systems run, when they're running, they're just sort of, there's not really a whole lot of noise or movement. So
yeah,
we had actually, the one thing we wish we had purchased later on was some sort of inline, bobbing device that would let us know that how fast the water was flowing.
A flow meter.
Yeah, because otherwise you just sit there and stare at it,
That's
and
a
then
inline bobbing device.
This is if we would have used more transparent tubing that had like it was either clear or whatever, we could have seen the water going through it via the bubbles. But we use gray tubes to match the interior of the case.
Yep.
So we couldn't see any of the water moving at all, and you can't see it coming through the water blocks because that's all. I mean, it's just solid. You can't see it. So
Right.
we couldn't actually see anything at all, other than some bubbles swirling around in the reservoir, which was transparent. But we still wanted to know how fast it was moving, where
if it was
where
getting
it was
stuck
going.
anywhere.
Yeah. So, and we also used. Let's talk about the tubing real quick too. We used what people would consider to be semi-thin tubing.
Yeah, we used Tygon silver antimicrobial tubing. The silver itself has antimicrobial properties that we, as in like science, still doesn't quite understand. But it will kill microbes, and it'll keep gunk from getting into the tubes and whatnot. So we didn't have to use any additives because of that.
I'm referring to the diameter of the tubing now.
Oh, that was 1/4, I think, and some people probably.
I think we used 1/4 external or outer diameter (OD), 3/8 inch internal diameter (ID).
And I guess some people were asking why we didn't use 3/8 inner diameter.
Yeah,
Thicker, bigger tubes. Basically.
We had to do a lot of wrangling of the tubing, and it would have been extremely difficult to use that. Those half-inch whatever is so thick.
They're not very flexible.
Not very flexible. So we chose to go thinner just to make that a little bit easier. And in the end, everything worked out perfectly, which we'll get to. And we're almost there. So we have our water all running. It's fine. There's no leaking anywhere.
And we discovered that you don't really need thicker tubes because we were able to get 5 gigahertz on the CPU without any problems in the temperature area, and the GPUs were fine. I think they were running under load at like 45 degrees.
Yeah, and we could not. I will say, I think we did overcool it because you could not warm anything up. Like, there's nothing we could do to get those water temps.
Those CPUs under load are supposed to be going at like 80 degrees C.
The cool thing is, the top of if you picture the top of the 900D, so we have push-pull fans, and on the top there's that rad, right? There's a 4-rad, right? Quad rad on the top.
Yeah.
Right. So there's basically 8 fans pushing air straight up to the top of the case. And for people who don't know, the top of the 900D is basically mesh.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a mesh, and then that's painted with this super smooth beige paint. So you could actually play air hockey on top of the Dream Machine.
I knew you were going with that.
Right?
I remember you showed that to me. You were like,
were
look
playing
at this.
air hockey. We put some CDs on there.
And it would
and
just,
you could just
float
them around.
Yeah, it would float on top of it. It was awesome.
Yeah, we did overcool it somewhat, but I mean the temperature has really never moved at all. Imagine having a 5 gigahertz CPU and putting a load of 100% on it and seeing the temperature rise 5 to 8 degrees. I mean it was pretty
impressive.
Amazing. And then the GPU is also I do GPU testing here. I'm used to seeing them idle around 35, 40, and then under load get up to 79, 83 roughly. It's pretty much where they usually end up. These were like 45C under load. 4 of them.
The needle would not move.
It was
Yeah.
really pretty impressive.
And there wasn't
And
even a lot
then-
of.
Yeah, so that was all awesome. I mean, once we got it up and running, it was just like, we were all really proud because it was totally working exactly the way we wanted it to work. We had resolved all the problems we had earlier on in the build.
And it wasn't that loud either.
It was pretty quiet. Temperatures were
Relatively quiet considering how many fans were in there.
Yeah, so we were like, sweet. And then like the first time we fired up 3D Mark, the new 3D Mark.
Right.
Which doesn't have a year after it. It's too cool
3D
for
Mark.
years.
Yeah, just 3D Mark without a year. We ran their 3D Mark, and I think our score was high enough to put us in the top 6 globally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And we weren't even overclocking the GPUs. They're factory overclocked, but
yeah.
still it's
So
pretty impressive.
we'll go ahead and talk about. You talk about the benchmarking a little bit, Gordon.
Right. So should we get into? So we obviously we got the processor up to 5 gigahertz, super stable 5 gigahertz. I actually think we could have got more out of it. We also couldn't get more out of the video cards, which I think we should have expected. I mean, I would have liked to push a little more out of the video cards, but honestly, again, we were right up on our power. Right. Any more, and I verified this because what I did is I unplugged the drives. Basically, I moved all the drives and all the fans on the pump onto a second power supply, and I was able to get a higher overclock out of the video cards.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of practice in the office with GPU overclocking lately to see what these new cards can do. So once Gordon was sort of done with his normal benchmarking, he kind of I said, let me give this thing a crack. I'm really curious to see what we can get away with, given how good the temperatures are, and long story short, I couldn't do anything. It would not move at all. I could not overclock it at all because basically the system was pulling so much power from the wall. It was just like this. It was way too fragile.
Yeah.
Seemed like.
Hopefully we can do only 2 video cards next time, so we can have more higher headroom.
Well, no, Tom is not. I mean, we would still have better performance. I mean, maybe 3 cards. I mean, we had, someone asked us too. Someone asked us what the performance benefit of that 4th card was, and the honest answer is we don't know. We would have to drain all the water out of it. Gently, like surgically remove that card from the water cooling loop.
Well, we could disable one of the cards because you can disable individual PCIe slots on that.
Yeah,
really?
we didn't go with the quick disconnects or the drainage, a proper drainage system.
We did order a couple of those valves though. We're basically just inline valves, let you close the whole system off.
Yeah.
Really helpful. We did have a couple emergency. Let me just undo this tube real quick, and then I'll quickly attach it over here, and then next thing you know, the water starts squirting out. It's like especially when you're down at the bottom of the loop with the tube in your hand, you don't realize how much pressure there is coming from above. It's pretty scary, but like just water, it's not going to hurt anything. But so yeah, we really couldn't overclock much at all. I found that even when I pushed the system, I mean, I'm talking 20 megahertz, it would just lock up.
Right, because I mean, again, we were right at the very edge of our power budget.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just nothing left.
I mean, I'm used to, just to put it in perspective, I'm used to over video cards here going 200 megahertz just as a starting point.
Right.
That's what we're used to doing, and then from there you can kind of have some more room, or not. I swear this thing, we could not even. I mean, literally at the end, we just said we can't. It's already overclocked by EVGA out of the box, and that's what we're gonna have to go with because we just can't touch it.
What were the clocks from EVGA?
I think it's like it's not too much. Usually when they
100 megahertz on top of what a Titan is at, like 800, right?
I have to look it up. I don't have it in my head, to be honest.
But I mean, as far as the reader who asked, what's the benefit of the 4th card? Well, again,
it's not much.
On the first post, we basically, actually that's not true because on the first post, the first time we ran 3D Mark, we were number 6 in the world in 3D Mark. So that's the value. And I will tell you, there are no Tri-SLI Titan boxes in that top 5. There's no way. So they're pushing 4 cards. They're using liquid nitrogen to cool everything, of course. But it's fast. Yeah, it's a benchmarking beast. So, and honestly, to play 4K, you probably need,
Well,
at
4K
least
with AA on, but if you're running at 4K, do you really need AA
Yeah,
on?
you
Because it's like there's going to be no
there's
jagged
always
edges.
something.
You're-
I think two Titans is probably the minimum.
Yeah,
Probably.
you're basically playing on 4 1080p panels at once.
Right. So
Yeah,
3 is nice.
It's kind of nice to see something move because we've had 2560 by 1600 on a 30-inch Dell panel for over a year and a half now, if not two.
Oh God,
2
Way
years.
longer,
It's
right?
been like
3 years?
4 years. It hasn't.
Long.
3-inch panels have not moved.
Well, it's like
at all in
everything
like
on
5
laptops
years,
is still
seems like.
1366 by 768. It's like
Because it's
the,
cheap.
yeah.
So to see something else, I mean, even when you plug a Titan in and put on Crysis 3, like you look at it, you're like, yeah, looks good. I mean, whatever. It looks good, but we've seen it before. Playing, I was watching them play Tomb Raider at 4K, and it was just like, holy shit. I mean, it had that look of where you were just like, wow, I've not seen this before. Just to go back real quick on the Titan, the stock clocks on the GTX Titan is 837. The Hydro Copper is 928.
So almost 100 megahertz.
Yeah.
Like
So that's not going to get you a whole lot. That's not going to get you a whole lot in the actual real world.
But I mean, you are making like a bunch of compute cores overclock, so I mean, it's decent.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the end of our discussion. We have system was built. People seem to be pretty into it. People predicted some of the parts, not all of them. Most people seemed like people knew we would do Titans. They didn't know if we would do 3 or 4. They thought we would do Haswell instead of Sandy Bridge E. No one saw that coming.
You really need to have Sandy Bridge E for all those video cards. There's just not enough PCI Express bandwidth on Haswell to handle that much GPU.
People thought we would go. Yeah. So what else is there? I mean, that's pretty much it. People knew
Did it work for you? Did the look work? Is the question.
Yeah, I think.
Retro.
Yeah, a lot of people out there. You might expect me at this point to say, everyone liked it, but obviously that's not the case. Most people did not like it.
No.
And that's fine. We're not trying to make it. We want you to be entertained and interested. And people actually didn't like it last year either. Last year was white and blue. And
Yeah. Although it's interesting because I kind of wonder if the people who didn't like it, maybe if they don't understand. For me, I grew up with beige computers, right? That's what a computer was. It was fucking beige. So.
And we're not trying to say we want that era to return.
I don't know. I kind of like that era where there were no other. The PC was the T-Rex.
I would buy
technology, right, back then.
I would buy a modern case that had a beige paint job. I think that's cool.
When I first saw, I have to admit that I got punked by Corsair. When I saw the 900D in beige, I was like, holy shit, I want that. I'm going to get that. I'm going to totally buy that. And I sent it to Gordon like, holy shit, look at this. And Gordon was like, dude, it's fake, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's fake. Isn't it? Like, I had to play it off. But it's pretty, I would, if right now, every case that's sold is black. That's kind of just what we're in right now.
Black is the new beige.
Black is the new beige.
Or white, but not much other than that.
Yeah, so that's basically it. Hope you guys liked it. And it's still sitting in our office. We'll be releasing some new stuff where we're releasing some new videos, some more information, some kind of background stuff on it.
It'd be cool to put some of the photographs that we were taking up on the site so people can see the high res.
I'm building I took a ton of behind the scenes photos as it was being built, as well as video, and I'm sort of slowly putting those up on Facebook. So if you check us out on Facebook, I put them on Twitter too. So follow us on Facebook or Twitter if you want to see those pictures. They sort of show it from the beginning. Although I took a bunch of video, and almost every video Gordon ruins it by using profanity of some sort.
No, he makes it better with
Yeah, I was about to
profanity.
say,
People want the
It
profanity.
enhances
They embrace the profanity.
proceedings.
They need
I don't
more.
even remember it.
All right. Well, that's basically all the time we have for our Dream Machine because we need to get on to reader questions. Unless you guys have any closing thoughts at all, I'm going to move on to reader questions now.
No, go ahead.
All right. So let's go on. I'm going to jump on. You know what? Let's just do. I'm going to go right to Gmail because we haven't done that for a while. So I'm going to read this real quick. All right. So this is. File in use is the name of the title. Michael Youngbeck says, I have been trying to clean up my media files and folders, but Windows Explorer is being a major pain in my ass. I'm constantly roadblocked by the file or folder in use error. I remember you once listed a program that would identify which program was locking a file and even force it to unlock. Unfortunately, I don't have that sense to write it down. What is that program?
Damn.
You guys remember the name of that? I know. I was thinking.
Damn.
I have that same problem where it's one of my biggest complaints with Windows is that it'll tell you a file's in use, but it won't tell you what program is locking it. God damn, that annoys me.
There's got to be some Google foo that can uncover that.
You know, I remember finding this out one time, and yeah, it would tell you which program it was, and it would unlock it. And it was really helpful. I'm sorry we don't have that information for you, Michael.
We'll have to look for it, though.
Yeah, but you know what, though? We have your email, and we will email it to you, and I'll bring it up on the next podcast. All right, here we go. So this guy says, Chris Jackson says, I'm running an older system using a BioStar 760 M2 Plus motherboard on Athlon 2, 3.0 gigahertz dual core, 2 gigs of memory. 2 gigs of memory, man. He says it takes forever to boot up, forever to post, forever to initialize the OS, running XP, forever to become useful in any way, shape, or form once the OS is loaded. Doesn't surprise me. Any thoughts as to what causes such a slow boot process?
What CPU is he using?
Athlon 2 3.0, dual core, 2 gigs of memory, M2 Plus motherboard.
I would say you've been using the system a long time, and your hard drive looks like the arteries of a really overweight guy who eats at McDonald's.
So maybe
every
defrag?
day. So I would probably either blow away the OS. I mean, that's a, right? A clean install OS does it.
Nuke it from orbit.
But honestly, you know what? Why not get an SSD? Yeah, you don't have SATA 6. I'm gonna bet there's a lot of things you don't have, but at least, well, he's got XP though, right?
I mean, XP is pretty fast though. I mean, pretty fast to boot if you have a pretty good SSD.
Does XP do trim?
You know what though?
No.
Let me.
That's the issue. You have to just count on the firmware. What would you do in that case? I would probably consider a reinstall or getting a new hard drive.
I mean, a quick fix,
Right.
is 64 gig SSD, throw XP on it, and then have your existing mechanical hard drive just be like your media drive where you keep all your Steam games, Photoshop, whatever you
Right.
have, and then you just have OS on 64 gigs, and
But
you don't touch it.
then you're like, come on, it's an Athlon 2. It's a dual core Athlon 2 box.
I mean, but he can pick up a 64 gig SSD for like $60, slap it in there, put the OS on it, and then he'll be screaming.
The SSD seems like it
it
makes sense, but also if you don't want to spend any money, you could just blow it away.
Yeah, if you're going to be
Yeah.
since it sounds like you need to start fresh, I recommend what Chris is saying is get an SSD, 128 gig, 80 gig, even 64 gig minimum. No, I would go with 128 gig if you can, and install XP on that thing. And man, when you first boot on that, I've never seen Windows XP on an SSD before. I'm sure it is insanely fast.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. Good luck with that, Mr. Jackson. Thanks for writing in. So our advice is blow it away. All right. So here we go. This is I don't know what this guy's name is. He says, "Hey guys, love your podcast every day. Listen to it on my commute, highlight my workday. Thank you. I have a question regarding sound card in my system. Interested in your thoughts. Here's the specs. ASUS M5A9X EVO motherboard, AMD FX 8120, 16 gigs RAM." OCZ Vertex 3, Radeon 7770, Recon Fatality, PCI Express sound card, Windows 8 Pro. All right, so it's like a decent mid to upper range system. Here's my issue. I've tried several times to install Linux on my second SSD. So he has... Okay. Now it's getting complicated. The Linux OS have tried both Ubuntu and Mint. I will not recognize the sound card. This is a Creative Sound Blaster Recon Fatality. I'm able to download the driver, run it through Wine, but I always receive the same error, sound card not detected, or something similar. A friend of mine I've speculated the only reason this is a particular sound card was produced... A friend of mine and I have speculated that the reason is that this particular sound card was produced in a backdoor deal between Creative Labs and Microsoft to make it properly Windows only. And is this likely, or do you think that something else is happening?
Well, Creative Labs took a long time just to update its drivers for Vista, and it's never really played well with Linux, in my experience. You'd probably have to go with onboard sound if you want to get sound to work in Linux.
Chris is our resident Linux expert.
Well, I mean, all the drivers in Linux are usually made, it's open source OS, so, you're kind of like at the will of who's going to make a driver for this. Is some guy going to just do a guerrilla driver for that particular sound card, or is Creative going to do it? So, I mean, if they don't do it, because, Linux really is not very much of the market. So, you're kind of, out in the boonies, like
If
waiting for a driver. I mean, yeah, probably integrated sound, like Tom said.
If Creative Labs doesn't release the source code for the drivers, then they have to be basically reverse engineered, and that can take years and might not happen at all.
Well, and there's a couple issues. First, I will point out that there is a shitload of licensing fees that Creative pays to Dolby, to DTS.
Yeah, they're not doing it
To
just to be
who,
dicks
so-
or anything.
A lot of stuff they just can't make open source
Yeah.
because they're paying people money for every sound card they sell. They have to actually pay a fee for it. Those royalty fees means they can't give away those people's algorithms for free. Two, you've actually touched upon the actual conspiracy. There is actually a conspiracy with Microsoft and Creative against Linux. But the fact that you've now brought it up means Creative and Microsoft will be sending secret police to your house to eliminate you. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We won't bother responding via email because it'll just bounce.
And he was never heard from again.
We wish you the best of luck. Yeah, it's funny. I actually we have readers email us all the time, and I get a lot of questions from readers just saying, and they're almost always sound card related, and it's always about drivers. It seems like it's such a pain in the ass.
Well, the alternative is to maybe get an Asus Zonar. They might have better support in Linux.
Yeah, you could look for a card that actually has Linux drivers. I'd probably cruise the Linux forums to see which ones people say work. I think anytime there's anybody else's IP tied up in it, though, you're going to have a difficult time.
And that motherboard doesn't require a sound card. That one definitely has, integrated sound. It's not excellent, but it's still doable in a pinch.
I mean, if you're an audiophile, you're definitely going to want to have a sound card. I mean, it just sounds way better. But I mean, people right now are like, Gordon and I've always talked about it. It's like people don't give a shit. Like they're like, whatever, I'll have shitty integrated motherboard audio.
You have to have good headphones.
I'm listening to an MP3. I'm not listening to like a crazy, audiophile. So I don't give a shit what it sounds like.
All right, we're moving on to Facebook. Matt Carney asks, where are the Intel Iris-based Ultrabooks?
I think there was CyberPower just announced an Iris Pro 5200 system.
Iris is basically the integrated graphics that are coming out in certain Haswell-based CPUs, none of which so far have really come out.
On the high end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, supposedly, if you're looking for, in terms of integrated graphics, it's right up there with AMD's APUs and stuff, I guess.
Well, it's
Yeah,
supposed to be better, isn't it? The Iris Pro?
The Iris Pro, well, the CPU for that has 128 megabytes L4 cache. It uses embedded DRAM. So that's pretty snappy. And that's its main advantage over other integrated
Right,
graphics.
5200 Pro.
So
Right.
the answer to that is that they're slowly coming out, but we have not reviewed any yet.
Although I understand that somebody is sending us an Iris Pro. Well, they've talked about it, hopefully. So
All right, so they'll be out soon. I want to move these quickly because we're getting short on time here. Last podcast, you guys said Windows Phone doesn't even have Facebook. My question is, why do you hate Windows Phone?
Why do you hate
When you
America?
obviously don't know, all caps, anything about them. I'm on Facebook right now on my Lumia 928 from Mandela Hollowell. Nobody here uses a Windows Phone, but I don't think anyone was hating on the Windows Phone.
Julian used a Windows Phone.
Julian, our intern, had a Windows phone.
Yeah.
He also worked for Microsoft he had worked for Microsoft. He was not a mole placed inside.
Josh just interrupted himself.
Yeah, I have to let me clarify that. The reason he had that phone was because he had worked for Microsoft, and I think they forced him to have it.
yeah, and also Catherine used I don't know what the hell, Windows Phone for a very, very long time until she got a free phone, and basically the free phone was an S3, so she moved over to Android.
It's a nice phone.
And I would, for me personally, I would never sit here and talk about a platform that I have no experience with definitively saying XYZ is, doesn't have XYZ. I don't know that.
Who said it didn't have Facebook? I don't remember.
Yeah,
anybody
so it
saying
doesn't.
that.
Anyways, so we're, if that's what you heard or that's what you think, Mandela, that's probably not the case. We certainly don't try to do that.
But at the same time, none of us use a Windows Phone, and I don't think any of us would probably use a Windows Phone because I think very much the lack of
App support.
robust app market is
Yeah.
hurting it.
I have nothing against the hardware. I have nothing against the OS on the phone. I would just like a larger app store, a larger ecosystem.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's going to kill Microsoft, seems like, in the long run, is that there's no apps.
The Windows Phone, and also I used a Windows Mobile 6.1 phone for a long time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's just no apps for it. There's just not enough apps, and it really is continuing to hurt it.
Michael Lee asked recommendations on external hard drives. Now, I don't think any of us actually go out to the store and buy those USB hard drives from WD and Seagate. I think they're all kind of interchangeable and the same. Most hardcore power users would tell you just to buy an external enclosure from like
Vanstar, anybody.
Yeah, one of those, and there's buy a OEM hard drive from Newegg and stuff in there. You'll save yourself about $15 because their prices now are not that different.
Yeah, actually, I just answered a lengthy question about this for somebody else. My answer is just go out and buy basically whatever Costco Club special is, which is the biggest drive that you want to pay for the cheapest amount from a well-regarded brand. And most importantly, don't expect that to be your backup. So everybody makes that mistake. They get a 3 terabyte drive. They move everything onto this thing. They put it away, and then a year later they pull it out, and the thing is fucking dead.
Yeah, I'm glad Gordon mentioned that. That's my biggest concern too. Is that people go, I'm buying a backup drive, meaning anything that's on it is backed up, even though it's only on that one location. So use it to back up your laptop or back up your desktop, whatever you need to. But if anything that's on that one location is susceptible to complete and total loss.
Right, but generally Seagate, Western Digital, you really can't lose. If it's cheap, just basically either buy 2 of them and then keep 2 backups, or think about getting a RAID enclosure and
redundancy.
I'm paranoid about that. And I've said this before. Data does not exist unless it's in 3 locations because you can have it in your inside your desktop, and then backed up onto a drive on your desktop, physically sitting on your desktop, and then your entire house could be washed away in Hurricane Sandy, and all your data's gone.
That's why I put all my data in the cloud where the NSA can inspect it.
Right.
Well, here, I'll give you a perfect example. I have an old Mac Store USB 2 hard drive. It's RAID 1, 2 500 gig hard drives. Basically, I backed a bunch of files onto it, 2 years ago, put it on a shelf. Recently, Josh, of course, paranoid me. I was like, I better check that drive. I'm going to move everything onto a different drive. I pull it out. One of the drives had died.
Oh, shit.
Just from sitting there doing nothing.
I had to take the entire enclosure apart, pull out one of the drives, pull the other drive out, mount that, and pull all the data off of it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, another thing is those enclosures can be pretty cheap, especially laptop hard drive enclosures. Like I got one for like $10 online, and I just threw in an old laptop hard drive that I had, and have an external hard drive that way. So if you have anything lying around, I mean, it's pretty cheap to convert it to an external
and pay
drive.
for USB 3.
Also, too, personally, the cloud stuff is pretty cheap. We did a comparison a couple of months ago with CrashPlan and Backblaze. Those are both $5 a month for unlimited storage. So consider that. Retrieval of files is pretty easy when you need it. That's certainly in the long run probably a decent solution because then it's you can access those files anywhere. Anyways, that's my pitch for
just don't lose your password.
Cloud storage. Yeah. All right. Someone wants to know our thoughts on the Crossfire frame rating issues. Justin Kerr asks that. We looked into that. So AMD has had frame rating issues with our Crossfire setups for a while. Isn't that one of our?
Yeah, we did testing on that.
Yeah, so
stuttering.
Yeah, it's frame stuttering. It's basically the 2 cards are not able to work in tandem in a consistent manner to deliver frames to your display that appear smooth. It's affected AMD for a long time. They've acknowledged that it was a problem. They also acknowledged they were working on a repair. And then they said the repair was coming out July 31st, so we all kind of waited around. And then sure enough, they missed it by 1 day, but on August 1st, they just released their frame rating driver 13.8 beta. And basically what it does was it's just a software fix that, that is, I don't know how if it does it in real time or ahead of time or what.
Well, it's software based, I know that much.
Right, so it's software based, and it's able to, let's say you have one card is consistently delivering frames at 100 millisecond interval. Now that's obviously much higher than you would normally get. I'm just using it for an example here. And the other card is delivering frames at a 25 millimeter interval. So if you put those 2 cards together, millisecond, in Crossfire and have them go back and forth with each other, 50 times a second,
there's massive lag in between.
You're gonna have a very choppy experience, even though your overall frame rate could still be 50 frames a second.
Yeah. So you want it to be metered evenly.
You want it to be metered evenly. Now, in a perfect world, the hardware would be configured that in such a way that both cards will be able to function at and just deliver the frames at 25 milliseconds. That's perfect. Unfortunately, that's not that's not perfect. Anyway, so AMD doesn't know how to make the hardware do that. So they've implemented a software solution that basically adds a delay into that one card to make them both look like they're coming out at 100 milliseconds. That's not an actual number. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
So one's at 100, one's at 25. So they've added 75 milliseconds of delay to that second card to put them both in a smooth interval.
Right, but again, you said AMD doesn't know how to do it with existing hardware. Right, so the current cards in the market, they can't just fix.
NVIDIA's frame metering is hardware based.
Right. So NVIDIA's done this. Does it via hardware. So I mean, and we haven't done we have not done all of our tests on this so far. We did a couple sort of impromptu tests using like Crysis 3 and Far Cry 3, and like you could definitely see extremely noticeable difference immediately. So a lot of people were sort of sitting there waiting. This is my opinion. A lot of people were waiting for AMD to sort of fail on this one, and then to be able to pounce on them and say, haha, I knew it. You guys suck. Couldn't do it. And they were kind of like, yeah, it's good enough.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The only problem is it only works in DX10 and DX11 games.
Right.
So
only DX11.
Oh, only DX11, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, only DX11. So if you have a DX9 and DX10 game, it's like, because Deus Ex Human Revolution actually uses DX9 and DX11. I remember, Tom, you told me that. And it's like, you can't play that.
Are you hurting for frame rates in those games?
No, the consistency at which the frames are delivered is what this fix does. So it's like, if you're having a really choppy experience, even though your frame rate is like 80 frames per second, it's like you can't fix that game because it's not supported, because it has DX9.
I suppose you could disable it, though, for that one game, right?
So for now, the AMD's solution is compatible with DX11 and then one display at 2560 by 1600. If you have multiple displays or DX9 or iFinity, none of it will work.
Yeah,
but they said that's coming in the next phase, so that'll be coming up soon. So yeah, it has made it pretty good, and they've also announced that their 7990 is now around $700. As opposed to $1,000.
Yeah, I think that involves some mail-in rebates, but still, it seems like a pretty decent deal.
Yeah, some of them
and there's
are
the game bundle too.
Yeah, some of them are mail-in rebates. You can get one for like $630.
Does that indicate they're coming out with a new product, you think, or does it just mean, hey, ain't no one buying it?
It's probably both.
Both. All right, so we're gonna actually move on. We're gonna move on quickly to our editor's picks. Once you started off, Chris, that's all the time we have for questions. So go for it.
Editor's pick.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, Tom, can you go first, please?
He's blanking out on his.
Unbelievable.
It's okay.
Sorry.
My editor's pick was the relatively recent expansion pack to Civilization 5 called Brave New World, and I like it because it adds in a lot more diplomacy options, which are historically kind of limited in the series. Like you have more things that you can do, basically. And it adds a lot more content to the modern era, the industrial area, and of the game.
I remember mine.
All right, go ahead,
Sure.
Chris.
It's the Samsung recovery tool that I used to clone my hard drive. Sorry, I'm forgetting the name though. What
Is
do you
it
remember?
Drive Magician or
Disk Magician?
They just
right?
have Samsung includes just a tool called data migration. I
Yeah,
think.
data migration. I used it. I got a new laptop. I wanted to put an SSD into it. I used the tool. You basically plug in your hard drive via USB or your SSD via USB. It'll clone everything for you. It takes about 20 minutes. You do it while you're in the OS. Yeah, it was hassle-free. Cloned it on there, slapped the SSD in, booted right up.
Yeah, the software that comes with your SSD is especially if you're doing a clone operation like that, it's pretty important to consider. So Samsung makes a really great tool. We haven't looked at all the tools that come out there that come with drives, but Samsung's offering is pretty hard to beat. Gordon, go for it.
All right, this is continuing from last week. Last time we did it, or when the hell we did it. Leatherman Surge, check it out, right?
You do have the same pick?
No, it's I didn't even get to really talk about it last week. Now look, check this out. So the big thing is, I was actually kind of against these bits before, but I've since come around. So we have bits, right? So you have your standard bit.
These
It
are
comes
basically
out.
these are basically removable.
There's
Oh,
an
shit.
extension, $10.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
But the nice thing
Wait,
is,
but you're not even telling people what it is, Gordon.
so this is a Leatherman Surge, and then it has a removable bit. I've long had them without the removable bit. I am now a fan of these. You can pull it out. The bit has a standard Phillips and a flathead screwdriver, and then they have these really cool, super flat other bits. So I have basically in my pocket 40 bits, right? So we're talking Torx head, we're talking hex heads, as well as this, I suppose some weird ass square. I think it's called a Robson or
Where
whatever.
do you store that thing, Gordon?
In this
It
pocket.
goes-
It actually fits in the holster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because
That's pretty nice.
I'm married with kids, so who the fuck
Yeah.
cares, right?
Yeah.
And so you got this. So basically, it's an incredible tool set. I can basically open anything up with this fucking thing. And check this shit out. It also has. I'm opening this up. And this has a saw that has a removable blade. So that takes standard. You can put a file on there or
Oh,
a
shit.
standard hacksaw blade. Basically, it's a hacksaw.
So basically, with this Letterman Surge, you have this holster that you would carry with it, and then in the holster you have these basically little sheaths of extra bits and tools and stuff. It's pretty
Right,
cool.
you can carry one and then put the other in your pocket. They basically take a normal bit and they grind them down so they're flat.
So if you're planning to crack a safe or torture
No,
somebody,
zombie apocalypse.
zombie apocalypse,
Zombie apocalypse.
or,
You will be ready.
it's the multi-tool from hell.
how much does that
or
cost,
from heaven,
Gordon?
depending on how you look at it.
On Amazon, they're $69, which is a steal because they go for about 80 to 90 elsewhere. There is, for people who are interested, there is a brand new version of the Surge coming out. They showed it off at the SHOT Show earlier this year. They made a couple changes to the wire cutters, and they got rid of this little tiny eyeglass screwdriver, which I actually like.
Oh,
Those are
shit.
handy.
Yeah.
So
Jeez.
that's everything you need right
Fuck.
there.
It's huge.
Ever.
One tool. Everything. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go do mine real quick. Then I'm never quite sure if some of these picks are good enough to be a pick, so I usually like to do a couple of them. So number one, or if my first pick is, this is something that Gordon showed me, so I'm giving the credit to Gordon. I just bought a Honda vehicle, and Gordon sent me a link to this demonstration of how to change all the locking codes on the car, which it's like not in the manual. So the crazy part about this is that it's not even, there's some that are in the manual, but the manual doesn't, there's like 4 or 5 that are not in the manual that are only online.
Now, what are you talking about here? What do you mean by lock codes?
So these are codes you can sort of program into the vehicle that determine when the doors lock, if they lock. So for example, when you go above 9 miles an hour, all doors lock. Or when you turn the key off, all doors open, like that type of stuff. So there's some settings for it in the manual. A bunch of other settings are actually not in the manual; they're online. So if you have a Honda vehicle, Google that, check that out.
So have you overclocked your car yet?
It's pretty cool being able to sit there and like mess around with the programming of the car. It's pretty cool. That's a pick, but that's just for people that have Hondas. I want something that's going to be valuable for everyone. So my number one pick this week is a basic lesson that I learned recently, which is don't ever forget your troubleshooting basics. A lot of times we get into this advanced knowledge and we think it's some sort of crazy solution or some sort of difficult to solve problem because we want to sort of flex our muscles, so to speak. We forget it's something very simple.
A cat tripped in the power supply.
I have 2 examples to back this up, and I'll be quick because we need to move on to Gordon's rant. Number one is I had a CF reader at home that when I put the CF card in and tried to copy the files, it would just freeze. It would hang my entire computer. So I was like, do I need to, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I would boot in safe mode. I was trying to put the files into a different USB port. I kept, I was just going around and around and around and around. I was talking to someone here on staff about it. I won't say who. And they were like, okay, you need to make sure you back off your overclock because maybe your overclock is being weird.
That's me.
All right. I didn't want to say it.
Spoiler.
So anyways, I went round and round and round and round and round. Finally, I just took the CF reader and plugged it into another computer, and it wouldn't. And same thing, just froze. So I'm like, okay, this CF reader is totally fucked, right? Took the CF card out of the reader, plugged it into a normal USB 2 reader, totally fine. So lesson number one, just go back to don't waste your time thinking it's some crazy problem. Just go back to the basics. Does this work in some other computer?
So the moral of the story is Gordon's wrong.
And then also too at work here, my computer at work here was being really, really slow, and I called IT over because I want to see how they would diagnose the situation. And I saw in Task Manager that the disk usage was way high, and I was looking at all the processes, and I was kind of examining it, and it looked like it was just a weird problem. But I was just like, what do you think about this? Because you guys did the imaging. You're the ones who run the stuff. What do you think? And he just looks at it and he goes, well, let's open up msconfig, and I was like, well, yeah, that's like step number one if system is being slow on boot up is what is running on startup. Number one, right? So anyways, both those lessons just sort of made me reinforce the thought of just always don't try to go to the most complex solution first. Just keep it basic.
Well, you should always back off your overclock. Go back to stock if you're having weirdness. I still think that's a basic rule.
That could be a basic rule. The thing is, I have the system stable for over a year now. Overclocked, never had a single problem. And it was exhibiting weird behavior when I was running it at stock clock. So that's why I didn't think it was anything to do with the.
No, but I'm saying you run it at stock clock where you continue to diagnose. You have to start eliminating possible causes.
All right, that's all the time we have. Let's get into this. Here we go.
Now it's time for Gordon Ung's rant of the week.
That is total fucking bullshit. Outlook is so bad. How many times crap you chuckle at some farmer looking at some dumbass running a segment out?
So loud.
Every fucking day.
This is actually something I think I complained about a while ago, but not on this fucking podcast, right? Okay. So Roomba, this is very interesting. So you guys know make Roomba, they make those little
Vacuum.
Vacuums that vacuum your house for you.
Like if you had a fucking peanut on the carpet, maybe it would vacuum it up if you're lucky, right?
Automated vacuum.
Yeah.
Cats like them though.
So, but check this out. There's a picture of this. I'm going to show it to you guys. People in the camera, you can't see shit. Creators of Roomba to sell a telepresence robot.
Nice.
So what it is in this picture.
Does it wander around the room randomly?
This is this guy's fucking boss, right?
Oh shit.
Yes. So
wait. Describe for people who listen.
shit you not. Basically, it's this guy with a clipboard standing in the factory floor talking to what looks like a TV that is clipped onto one of those fucking shitty, Captain whatever Doctor Who.
It looks like you attached
1980
Daleks.
sci-fi.
It looks
basically.
like somebody.
Those Daleks, right? Where does that remember?
Looks like somebody attached an LCD to a moving support beam.
Right. That rolls around the floor and fucking just like talks to you. To make
Right.
sure
So it'd
that
be
you're
like
working.
you're working, and all of a sudden this pillar of steel comes behind you. On top of it is an LCD with your boss going, "Hey, dickhead."
Like a
So
like
in
a
the
Segway,
future,
no rider.
in the future, your fucking boss won't even come over to talk to you. They will fucking have a robot roll over to see if you're fucking around or
And
not.
that's how you get fired.
Can you believe?
It rolls over to you and says, "You're fired. Go see HR."
Who would use this?
Yeah. And another one comes over to escort you to make sure you don't.
Hey, can I? I don't mean to. I'm not trying to jump into your time, but can I read that Mac article briefly?
Which I don't remember.
I have the Mac article. I brought this in to read, and let me. I'm not going to step on Gordon's time. Let me just briefly read some highlights from this article. This is called. Sorry, I forgot. This is called. You will want. This is from the Mac Observer. It's called. You will want a new Mac Pro, but here's why you'll need it. All caps and need. All right, here's what it says. I'm going to go through this briefly. When Apple announced this new Mac Pro, the first thought of many customers was that they wanted it badly. Then reality sunk in. This is a Mac Pro for professionals. It'll be too expensive for the rest of us. However, here's why you'll need it anyways, and you will love doing it. Here's the reasons. Whenever a new Mac comes out that breaks new ground, the first reaction may be, oh, sure, it's cool and it's fast, but I don't need it. In time, however, we all come to realize that we really do need it. Here are a couple of the reasons why we need it. This is the Mac Observer article. Developers. Apple's developers spend a little money to make bigger money, so the investment in a Mac Pro or 2 will be recovered in several ways. First of all, current compiles will be faster, so more complex products will get to market faster. That means, like, if I had a faster computer here at work, I'd be able to finish my articles quicker. Like I could save the files faster.
You could save your Word documents faster.
I overclock my computer, and I'm getting done at least half an hour later.
I know you should have already left. It's 5.
I know what I'm still doing here.
Plus, new products will be developed faster with more. But more importantly, the availability of a very, very fast Mac invites developers to explore richer, more capable apps. So it's saying that developers will push boundaries because there's a Mac out there that can. I mean, what? Okay. For example, this is their example. If rendering a game is almost realistic, keyword almost, the new Mac Pro will tempt the developer to make it photorealistic.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is how it's pushing the boundary. If a computation was too long to tackle before, it would make the developer look bad. This new Mac will invite the new computations that will delight the user.
You know, people have been saying this for like ever since computers first reached the desktop.
All right, this is the very end of it. Number 2 is called the ripple effect. This will be over in 2 seconds. On a Mac, once a Mac like this gets into the field by hundreds of thousands, it will send ripple effects through the entire customer base that we might not appreciate today. Its speed, by its design, will set the bar. Soon, very few people will be happy with what they have. New peripherals that augment the speed will become available. These peripherals, which are unknown to us right now, will flesh out the Mac Pro, enhancing its capabilities and making it look more attractive than the sterile view we have of it now. And that's a pretty compelling reason to buy it.
What the fuck does that even mean?
All right. Eventually, customers who felt like they didn't need a faster Mac will become exposed to new possibilities with the Mac Pro through friends, businesses, tech websites, and Apple stores. This sounds like a fucking Onion article. They'll come to realize that their plan to fall a little bit behind in Apple technologies just is not a good plan. This is the very end right here. The near future is all about IPv6, 802.11ac, USB 3, and Thunderbolt. One can only hold out so long before coming to the realization that this is a bold new beginning for Apple and for desktops. In short order, it gets to be unnerving when one goes into an Apple store and there's nothing for sale that works with an aging Mac. So the notion becomes, the notion isn't I want a new Mac Pro, but rather I need one to get on with my Mac life. End quote.
That is just fucking sad.
There's no spec sheet in there anymore. The wax is poetic and philosophic about this new paradigm, but he doesn't mention any of the anything on the.
It's an editorial piece, man. It's not.
Apparently.
What I don't get though is
little light on hard.
This is hard news.
I mean,
hardcore news.
Sorry, I don't mean to hijack your rant, Gordon.
Yeah. So you're giving me some fucking bonus time here, right? Because you're trolling me. So
I'll give you bonus time.
I can't complain. One thing, I can't complain.
All right, thanks for joining us.
No, just kidding. I cannot complain about somebody on the other side of the aisle who says everybody should buy a brand new, super fucking expensive computer because it fucking is nice when everything is fast and nice and new, right? I mean, that's basically the argument, which is like, that's why we exist, right? That's why we are here. We just built the fucking Dream Machine because we like things stupidly fast, right? So it's awesome.
I'm not against the sentiment. I would just like to know what evidence he's using for that.
The evidence is the fucking Mac Pro is like 85 years old, right? It runs on fucking Steam.
I just want some examples.
Like a dual Nehalem.
I just want some examples of that kind of hardware that he's talking about. He doesn't really.
Mac people don't give a shit about
the guy mentions Thunderbolt and USB 3, but he doesn't really talk about what.
Yeah.
I have no idea what video card is in that system. No idea what GPU.
I don't think it's
how much
technically
RAM,
a card.
CPU, storage. There's no.
What I don't really understand, and of course it's very typical of on that side of the aisle, is like, why doesn't he saying why are we getting fucked, right? Why have we been fucked this whole time? Basically, people who like really fast computers, people who buy Mac Pros, they bought a dual 6-core Nehalem forever ago, and they haven't upgraded it. Whose phone? Oh, so they haven't upgraded it. And then now what? So you're going to buy this new Mac Pro and you won't see an upgrade for like another 5 or 6 years? I mean...
The average consumer has no need for these Fire GL Pro video cards, nor do they have a need for this system, which may cost over $10,000. Everyone's sitting there going, yeah, I want that fucking Pro, but no, wait till you see the price tag. Then
see, that's the other problem, right? Why doesn't it get into why are we getting fucked by Apple on our desktop computers, right? You want to buy a new iMac? Oh, awesome. Brand new Haswell i7. They're going to come out, right? Oh, what's the graphics? Oh, it's a mobile part they jammed in there to run on 10 watts or something like that, right?
They perceive the PC platform as cheap and prone to breakage.
Whereas
they don't perceive the Mac platform.
But what I'm saying is, why don't they leave fucking North Korea and just move over to our side where you can build what you want? You want dual core, you want a quad core, you want whatever. You want this much RAM, you want this video card. What?
Final Cut Pro. You can't get that on...
No, you know what? People... Fuck Final Cut Pro. They've all given up on Final Cut Pro. Apple has abandoned it. Like even here, our video people have switched over from Macs because they've been fucked on Mac Pros to PCs to run Premiere because like everybody hates that new version of Final Cut Pro. But I'm just saying, it's just that is the bullshit thing about that. You have no choice. You have there's no options, there's no choices, there's no freedom. You can't do anything. And then he's like talking about, we should buy this $10,000, workstation because we'd be perfectly fine with a $1,500, $1,500 PC that kind of $1,500 spec box, which that's what they want, right? Haswell, a 780 card, 16 gigs of RAM, and that's all they want for a low cost. But no, you can't buy that. The next step is a $10,000 Xeon box.
With all SSD storage, you can't upgrade your video cards because you're stuck with them. Fucking, you can't upgrade your processor because it's probably BGA.
But what kind of a choice is that? I mean, what?
There is no choice, Gordon.
It's like $10,000 or $1,500 iMac or $2,000 iMac.
You know what? It's exactly analogous to PCs versus consoles. Some people like the simplicity. They want someone to buy it, set it down, turn it on, and not even think about that shit.
They like their hardware being pre-approved and certified by Apple.
There was
the imprimatur of
or making some made up thing like saying how I need my Mac Life because
you need retinal. You need retinal.
Yeah. There was an article for those of you who want to read this article. It's on the Mac Observer. Article's name is John Martellaro, and he links an article in here. It was an interview with the OWC founder. They're a Mac hardware company, and they talk about how disappointed they are in the Mac Pro. And he says this is typical Apple. Apple tells us exactly what we need inside, and what's on the outside's for us to determine. So it's like, and he actually is kind of upset by that.
It's amazing that
he doesn't like it.
That he would step over the line like that. You know what happens if you step over the line over there?
You get obliterated into nothingness.
I don't know. They could disappear. But I mean, yeah. Why doesn't he write a? Did they talk about how to build a Hackintosh or something? I mean, it's just like there's
what told you that?
Just leave.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Anyways, no one knows the price of the Mac Pro. It still looks like a garbage can.
They don't have a price. I mean, does the MSRP not exist?
Correct.
I want to know what CPU is going to be in there.
But you need it.
12-core Ivy Bridge. E?
They're saying 12-core Xeon.
Right, so it's a Xeon 12-core, I guess they're coming out with.
Yeah.
That's got to be really cheap.
12-core Ivy Bridge.
Smell a bargain.
Those video cards are probably a couple grand each.
Is it 3 Fire Pros or 2? 2. Okay.
PCI Express SSD. I mean, it's not going to be cheap.
I mean, they've always been. I mean, workstations have always been expensive.
And then you're talking about Thunderbolt-based accessories to add on to it. That's also hella expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, Thunderbolt looks like a total going nowhere technology at this point, doesn't it?
It's just too expensive.
I bought a Drobo to handle some of my backup stuff, and it has a USB 3 and Thunderbolt interface. And I found the USB 3 was pretty slow, so I thought, I'll switch to Thunderbolt. Yeah, awesome. Looked into the manual and everything. Thunderbolt not supported on Windows.
Yeah, it's modified Lightpeak is what it is. It's Intel's Lightpeak, which is like supposed to be super fast, data migration, and Apple modified it to be,
Thunderbolt theoretically does have a lot of more bandwidth than USB 3. They also just passed that new USB 3.1 thing that's going to double it from 5 to 10, and Thunderbolt's still theoretically at 20.
Thunderbolt is indeed fast. I mean, I've done testing, and it is fucking fast. But the thing is, ain't nobody supporting on the PC, so that kind of means it's going nowhere.
It kind of sucks because like on this Drobo, for example, people with Macs who tested both Thunderbolt and USB 3 were able to get like 230 megabytes a second out of the Thunderbolt and around 120 if they were lucky out of USB 3.
Yeah.
In terms of read and write speed. So
significantly.
USB 3 has legacy support though because you can use it on anything.
And the cables don't cost like $50 a pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's more open. It's like
$50 cable.
They will probably eventually migrate to. Well, I mean, we'll see, but it wouldn't be surprising to see them just say, we're going to go back to USB 3. So.
I think they're going to stick with it. I think Thunderbolt. It is an impressive technology. If it actually survives, I think it'll probably make it. You've got Intel and Apple, but I mean, the fact is nobody wants it. It's not cheap, so.
For those of you who don't read the magazine or missed it, we reviewed a Buffalo external drive maybe a couple months ago that had both USB 3 and Thunderbolt and tested them back to back on a single drive inside, and there was zero difference, zero. So if you see all this Thunderbolt stuff and think, man, I'm going to get a Thunderbolt USB, the external drive that'll be so much faster than my USB 3, it will not be any faster.
No, you need four disk SSD 0 just to even push it. If you're not doing 4-disk RAID 0 SSD, then it's
so
not
basically you
really
need that $10,000 Mac Pro.
Even if you're doing 4-disk RAID 0, I mean, that could theoretically push it.
Well, really I mean, what I see this when we talk about, everybody's talking about this. External PCIe. Thunderbolt carries PCIe. Eventually, if Thunderbolt actually survives and isn't rejected by everybody except for Apple, you will see external, Thunderbolt graphics with actually maybe just barely enough bandwidth to be able to run very decent external graphics.
Well, what kind of external graphics do you think you could run?
The bandwidth is about equal to, I think, PCIe 2.0 X4.
Yeah, so it's getting this new version. It's
X4?
You got to remember though. I mean, Intel designed Thunderbolt to whatever the hell it is, light peak. We're talking about 100 megabits or 100 gigabits. I mean, it's got a shitload of bandwidth in the roadmap.
That's crazy.
So it will do it eventually if it survives and if there's any adoption. But PC vendors don't seem to be embracing it.
You know what else happened when I was looking for that alternative to the Thunderbolt thing was I was looking at I have an ASUS Z8 Z77 board, and it turns out that ASUS had actually built some headers into their board for Thunderbolt, and later on down the road they had announced, you can add Thunderbolt to your motherboard, just buy this thing. You already have the headers on your board. I was like, oh, fucking cool. And I fucking went to their website trying to find where that part was or what that product was.
Never
and it disappeared. Yeah, completely disappeared.
Sure, I have one of those cards sitting in the lab right
now. They talked about it. It was brought up, and every result I found, it's a bad sign in Google when every result you find is where can I find the X, whatever it is you're looking for. That's
the answer is Google it.
Yeah. That's a bad sign. So I was unable to add Thunderbolt to my system, and when I finally got to the end of that chain of investigation, Thunderbolt wasn't even supported in Windows on that stupid Drobo drive. So.
Right. There's just part of that is also because Intel really kind of screwed up with how they adopted Thunderbolt, because it requires that you have basically graphics, right, running through it. Well, a lot of people running Sandy Bridge E systems, 6-core, 8-core, and up, those guys don't have graphics, so you cannot get Thunderbolt on people running workstation machines, which is kind of where you think you would want it. Yeah. You can only get it on Ivy Bridge and Haswell boxes. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, you need IGP.
And those are all Intel machines, and yet Intel Thunderbolt doesn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't really well thought out. Apparently, it's something they must be fixing, because if whatever Mac Pro trash can has, that's going to have Thunderbolt. That's going to have Ivy Bridge E, most likely, right? So it's going to have a Xeon part, no integrated graphics.
So is it possible for them to put the integrated graphics into LGA 2011?
No, they can't do it. But I mean, But I don't know what they're doing. But what are they going to make?
Maybe there's a separate processor just to do Thunderbolt.
No. It's funny because I just reviewed an Intel motherboard, a Z87 board. It had whatever the latest. I can't remember. It's one of the Ridge chips, but it is one of the later generation Thunderbolt chips. And I looked at the price, and it was only $10, which is not cheap when you're talking about an ASIC on a motherboard. But I will say, way back, I was at some computer event, and one of the drive vendors was bitching that Thunderbolt chips are like $85. So
way too expensive. Yeah. Those type of when manufacturers are putting those pricing concerns, when they have those pricing concerns brought to them, when they're trying to make a decision about $1 or $3 sometimes that will make or break a product.
Yeah, so $85 is just out of the question.
When I worked at ASUS, there was times where they would say we could do wireless. This is on notebooks. We could do wireless G for nothing. Wireless N is $5. And they were like, we can't do it.
We can't do wireless N.
Can't do it.
We gotta go B.
A, no one has wireless N. This is a couple years ago. B, average consumer isn't gonna give a shit. C, that's $5. That's gonna add. I mean, you're gonna talking about how that ripples through all. Anyways.
Right. And I will say that $85 thing I made up because I swear to God he said like $100, and I have asked Intel over and over again how much. This is years ago when Thunderbolt was first introduced. So how much does Thunderbolt? How much does that ASIC cost? They're like, that $100 you hear, those guys are fucking high. This thing is not $100. How much is it? It's not $100. That's crazy. So how much is it? Are you nuts? No one would ever make a part that's $100. That's how much is it? Right.
$85?
No, I mean I don't know how much it was, but obviously no one's using Thunderbolt right now, which is kind of like not good, right?
Yeah. I
mean it's basically Apple and Intel. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, USB 3 is going to be our thing for quite a while, and it's actually USB 3 is really fast. It's starting to become native now to more and more platforms. All the external drives are now USB 3. We're just now getting USB 3 native USB keys. I'm getting one from Lexar next week that does 290 megabytes a second.
Jeez, that's crazy.
It's gonna be badass.
That's crazy
it's called
talk.
It's called the P10. It's $200 for 64 gigs. So it does.
That's expensive.
It does come. It is expensive, but I mean it's pretty nice. USB 2 is goddamn horrible.
Yeah, there's a
USB. You know, it's funny when USB 2 came out, we were like, finally, because USB 1 was like, I can't believe I ever used that shit. And then now that we have USB 3. When we go back to USB 2, it feels like a hate crime. Yeah, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding? I was actually copying files today. I was copying a 900 megabyte file to a USB 2.0 key. It took like 6 minutes.
Yeah,
The horror.
USB 3 is
it,
nice.
it levels off at like, what, 20 megabytes per second or something?
It's like Dane Cook had a joke about how in the future everything will be instantaneous, then DMV will still be 2 seconds.
2 fucking seconds.
2 seconds! He used to be really funny.
Anyways.
That was a long time ago. All right, so that's about all we have for the show. Before I say goodbye, I want to give a quick shout out on iTunes to John Galt 26, Kind Death 76, Silver 0070, and YOUTS55. Thank you guys for the kind reviews. Appreciate it very much. We are out of here. Check us out online. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook. Visit our forums too. Insula Gilliganus wanted me to mention that. We have tons of people on the forums, getting more and more active every day. You want to leave us a message, call us at 1-877-404-1337, extension 1337. You can subscribe digitally on Google Play, iTunes, Kindle, Nook, and on Zinio, and we're also still in print. So on behalf of Chris Zella, Tom McNamara, and Gordon Ung, thanks for listening. Catch you next time.